How is child support calculated in Alabama? Well, one of the things you got to take into consideration is, do I have joint custody or do I have primary or sole custody of my children? Because that's going to affect the amount of child support paid in your case. So in the past, a long time, if people shared joint custody or equal time with their children, nobody paid child support because you took care of the expenses on your time, I take care of expenses on my time, and nobody pays child support. Well, that changed not too long ago in Alabama when we have now a joint custody child support statute that lays out what our guidelines are for even in a true joint custody situation. One parent may have to pay child support. However, if one parent has primary custody and the children live most of the time with one parent, definitely child support is going to be paid. There are some judges that will outright reject an agreement by parties for no child support. Even if you want nobody to pay child support, if you don't follow the guidelines, there are certain judges that just will not allow that agreement to go through. If you try your case, 100% child support is going to be ordered one way or the other, whether it's joint or primary or full custody to one parent. And child support is calculated essentially this way. Take your income, the other party's income, and it adds together. For round numbers, let's say you make $2,000 a month, they make $2,000 a month, you have two children. That's going to give you a combined family income of $4,000. And then the child support, what we call guidelines, in the wisdom of the great state of Alabama, there's this formula we use that says, okay, this number of children, this family income level, this is what we call a basic obligation. And again, for round numbers, let's say it's $1,000 a month for these two kids. That's what we call a basic obligation. And then the two things we can add to that basic obligation are any payment of health insurance costs for the children and any work-related child care for the children. And so let's say you don't have any health insurance costs because it's provided free, they're on Medicaid, and then there's some maybe $200 a month for child care costs. So that's going to bring your $1,000 basic obligation up to $1,200. And so now you have equal amounts of income. And if you have custody, your husband has visitation, he is going to pay you basically 50% of that total figure. Again, if it's $1,200 for your basic obligation, he has 50% of the income. His child support order often is going to be 50% of that figure. So again, short version is going to take your income, their income, added up. The percentage of what your income versus their income is going to determine out of that basic obligation what you or the other parent should pay in child support. Child support can and often should be modified along the way, especially if your children are very young. When you divorce, incomes can change dramatically through the years. And so you may need to go back and ask the court to modify or to change the child support because the other parent is making a lot more money now than they used to. Or maybe you're the paying parent and you've fallen on hard times. You used to have a really great job, but the economy soured and you lost your job or you got a pay cut. And now you can't even afford to pay your bills, let alone the high amount of child support you were previously ordered to pay. You should ask the court to modify or to change your child support amount. And generally speaking, if the child support award is going to go up or down by 10%, that is a valid reason to modify child support. That doesn't mean that your income has changed 10% one way or the other, but if your child support amount you're going to pay has changed, keep in mind, if you have been divorced for years and you're paying a certain amount of child support, but both you and your spouse have tremendously different incomes now than you did many years ago when you divorced, your child support may go up. Even if that person is making a lot more money than they used to, if you're both making more money, it could push that basic obligation up to a level where even though you might have a different or a smaller percentage of the income, that basic obligation could be so much larger that even your smaller percentage is more dollar for dollar than you're paying right now. Those are complicated things that may be difficult for you to figure out on your own. That's one of the most important reasons you should consult with a lawyer who's experienced in working in Alabama child support cases to help you determine how a modification is going to affect the amount you pay or the amount the other parent pays to you. It can be modified, but you really need to ask yourself, should it be modified, and when is the right time for me to file for a modification? What is going to happen to you if you miss your child support payments? Well, you probably know that in Alabama, people can be put in jail for missing child support payments. Child support is an extremely important thing to keep up with and not fall behind on, because there are a lot of judges that will put you in jail for 5 days for every time you've missed a child support payment. In Alabama, the penalty for what we call an act of contempt, which means you failed to do something or refused to do something the court told you to, which can include paying child support, can be 5 days in jail for every missed child support payment. So that means if you're ordered to pay a weekly child support payment and you've not paid for a year, that's 52 weeks. 5 times 52 is a lot of days in jail. You don't want to have to spend time in jail. So if you've had a dramatic income change and you can't afford to pay child support, the smartest thing you can do right now is to file to modify your child support and inform the court, hey, I've had a change. I can't pay right now. Because if you don't, and you just simply stop paying and think, I'll catch up later on, that's a bad decision, because your spouse or your former spouse may choose to go to the county courthouse and file a non-support warrant against you. That gets to be a criminal issue then, where even different than just a civil contempt penalty, you could have a case where they're going to lock you up first and ask questions later because they swore out a non-support warrant for you. That's a various thing to take into consideration. So don't get behind the child support. If you do, file something immediately to get it rectified. But what if the other side is not paying child support and you're supposed to receive child support? They're not paying it. You've got to know, same deal. It is a contempt of court for them not to pay child support. And you need to hire a lawyer to file a contempt petition against them, asking the judge to sanction them in every way possible, up to and including putting them in jail if necessary for non-payment of child support. You think, you know what, I can get by, I'll make do, my kids aren't going to go without if I have anything to do with it. A child support obligation is not to you. A child support obligation is owed to your children. They deserve for you as their parent to enforce that child support that they're owed. You need to go to court and make that other parent pay like they're already ordered to pay. If they're missing child support payments, you need to consult with a lawyer right now who can help you determine if and when and where you should file a child support contempt petition against the other parent, because your children deserve to receive the support that they are entitled to. How do you enforce a child support order? You have an order, and you think, gosh, it's just a piece of paper. What good is this going to do to me? If your former spouse is working, you need to file what's called an income withholding order against them. So that means their employer is required by the law to take that amount out of their check every week, bi-weekly, once a month, whenever they're paid, and pull that support out, send it to the state of Alabama, who will then send child support to you. That's probably the most effective way to get paid your child support, is to make sure that it comes out of their check. You can enforce child support in a lot of ways, but the best way is going to be through an income withholding order. If that's not possible for whatever reason, they can still pay through the state payment center, even if they, or maybe are self-employed. They can send a check or a money order every month down to the state payment center, who will then in turn send the child support payments to you. If they're not paying, that's an issue of contempt that you need to take very seriously. You don't want to let it go on and on and on, thinking, okay, I'm going to let it build up for a year, then I'm going to really stick it to them. Well, you need to show the court that the urgency is there for you, that even if they miss 3 or 4 months of payments, not because they've had a hard time and can't pay it, but because they're just refusing or don't want to pay, you need to enforce that child support, because the child support award is not for you. It's for your children. They deserve that, and you should help the children by enforcing the child support order. So if you're anywhere in the state of Alabama and you have questions about child support on either side, the paying or the receiving side of child support, call our office right now. We'd love to help you figure out what's the best route for you.